be seated. The Chamber announces the resumption of the proceedings. Now the Chamber announces the oral ruling on Nuon Chia's request pursuant to Internal Rule 87.4 to admit new evidence. Concerning the Nuon Chia defense request to admit as new evidence a color copy of various Cambodian banknotes, the Chamber notes that this document was used in court yesterday on 12 August 2015 without any objections. The document is the colorized version of a black and white document already on the case file, document E3/4535 at ERN 00685868 to 69, 00685827, and 00685772. The Chamber therefore grants the Nuon Chia request. However, the Chamber reminds the parties that if they intend to use in court a document that is not on the case file, they must file a request in advance and not at the last minute in court. Now, Mr. Prosecutor, you may resume your examination.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to all. Sir, when you worked at the Trapiang Tamal Dam, were you aware of any visits of people from Phnom Penh?
No, that I did not know, because at that time I was engaged with my assigned task. So whenever there was visit from other people, I was not aware.
Okay, thank you. Now, when we ended this morning, you had explained that after you were removed from the assignment of collecting fertilizer and given a job distributing rice. Who did you distribute rice to? Was it to a mobile brigade? Was it to a district sector?
As for the rice, it was distributed within the sector's committee.
When you say it was distributed within the sector's committee, I'm a bit confused. Does that mean you distributed the rice throughout this sector, Sector 5, or do you mean only to the committee members? Can you explain?
So it was on mobile brigade of the sectors. We did not distribute to the people directly. We distributed to the mobile brigade subordinate to the sector.
How many people received the rice that you distributed? How many workers were there at that time?
To my recollections, distribution task. I had to collect the rice from the cooperative of the district, and then we had to unhusk the rice, and then we distributed it back.
Okay, so you took the rice from the cooperatives that were growing rice and then distributed it, took it to a warehouse, if I understand correctly, and then distributed it to the workers, to approximately 20,000 workers. Is that correct? Did I understand correctly? I'm just trying to see if I understand you.
Yes, that is correct.
Sir, this numbers, I know that you're making estimates, but in your written, in your interview with DC Cam at page, the Khmer is 007-28822, the French 011-23731, and in English it's 0073-1139. You said you distributed it to 32,000 workers. Can you just explain, do you think it was 20,000 or 32,000? Can you explain the difference?
When they convened a meeting to put forth the plan, they told us that the mobile brigade members accounted for more than 20,000 people, and they were subject to be given the rice.
Okay, thank you. When you distributed the rice, who did you give it to? Did you give it to individual workers or did you give it to leaders? Who did you take the rice to?
The mobile brigades were all from the district, so there were their representative. As we distributed the rice to their representative in each mobile brigade.
Do you recall now how the rice was kept? Was it in bags? Or how did you actually give it to them?
Yes, we put the rice in the bag and then we store them. And on the distribution days, we would distribute the rice in bag.
Did you distribute rice every day or every week? How often would it be distributed?
When we were on the offensive at that time, we distributed sometimes once every 3 days.
The word, by the way, you used offensive. I'm familiar with that as a military term, but what did you mean by the word offensive? What did it mean at that time when you used that word?
The word offensive in this means that at that times we had to make we had to do our level best to accomplish a plan or a target set, and then we try to accomplish that, and that was called the offensive.
So about how many bags would you distribute per day?
We distributed it accordingly to the representative coming to receive the distribution. For example, there are 400 cans of rice per bag, and then it all depended on the day when the representative of each mobile brigade came on the day, and we had to do the division based on the numbers of people coming to collect it. For example, if they receive 3 cans per day, then it had to be divided accordingly.
Thank you. But I'm just asking if you can, if you recall now, would you recall how many bags you distributed in a day or in a month? Do you recall what that statistic was?
To my estimation, 3 cans per person, and sometimes we distributed up to 30 bag per day, depending on the location of the mobile brigades where we distributed it.
So do you mean 30 bags per day were distributed from your warehouse to different, in a total, 30 bags per day to different districts? Do I understand correctly? So some bag, maybe 3 districts each got 10 for a total of 30? Is that what you mean?
But
Yes, it depended on the labor force of the district. It was in proportionate to the labor force. So on one days we would distribute it to the mobile brigade of one district, and then the other day with another mobile brigade in another district.
A can of rice, do you recall approximately how many kilos that was? Or what part of a kilo was in 1 can of rice?
Four cans of rice is 1 kg, and then 1 can, then we can do the calculation here. It is divided by 4. We can do the calculation altogether, how much it weighs.
Okay, so it's a quarter of a kilo per can. And just so we understand, the cans that you're talking about that were used, were these the condensed milk cans?
but
Yes, that is correct. It was by condensed milk can.
So that would mean that in 100 kilos, you would have 400 cans of rice. And I believe you previously said that 1 bag equaled
but
400 cans. So were the bags then, did they weigh 100 kilos each?
but
Yes, 1 bag weighs 100 kilograms.
Thank you. Now, what happened if people were not able to meet their quota? Did they receive the full ration of 3 cans per day or whatever the ration was for that day?
The President. Witness, please hold on. Counsel for Mr. Kisampon, you may proceed. Counsel Kungsamon. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to object against this question because this question invites speculation from the part of the witness.
And the question was, based on his experience, of course, when someone did not meet their quota, did they receive their full ration or not? I'm not asking you to speculate. I'm asking you what you saw when you were working there.
this issue, whether or not they achieved the quota or not, it depended on the decision of their respective unit chief. As for us, we were only assigned to distribute the rice, so it all depended on the unit chief to tell us.
Now, when you were working in that sector mobile brigade, did you have contact with the sector, when you were distributing rice, distributing rice for the sector mobile brigade, did you have contact with the secretary of Sector 5?
No.
At that time, sometimes the sector committee came down to inspect the quantity of rice and the distribution, and sometimes he sent his delegate. For example, a month they were supposed to transport to the place for 4,000 bags, and then if they supply, for example, 6,000 bags, how many bags left after the distribution? So they came over to inspect the distribution and the quantity of rice available.
Who was the sector leader or sector leaders when you were in that position, distributing rice?
Bong Rin, Brother Rin.
Can you tell us something about Rin? Where was he from?
Brother Rin was from the southwest zone.
Do you recall the town that he was from or the province?
That I do not know. I only know that he came from the zone. At that time, it was not easy to ask people about their personal detail.
Thank you. We don't want you to guess. Thank you for telling us that. Now, tell us a little bit about Rin's, what he was like as a leader of the sector. How was he as the sector leader? Can you give us any details about that?
It was based on my personal experience. Personality-wise, whenever he got there, he would go straight to take the hoe or the earth carrying basket, and he would would go down with the workers, and he did together with others.
You mean he worked together with others? Is that what you mean?
Yes, he helps the brigade, the mobile brigades at the time. Sometimes even the members did not know that he was there, because the way he dressed, the way he behaved was more ordinary than the members there.
What happened to Rin? Do you know his fate?
Later on, he was removed, and I did not know where he had gone to. He disappeared.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. And just for your honors, there are two documents relevant to the fate of Rin. One is E3-2254 in Khmer. The relevant page with the ERN is 00-86766. In French, it is 00-834-853. And in English, it is 00-789-707. It's indicated on that list from S21 that Rin was, quote, finished, unquote, in 1978. And we also have a document E3/7403, which is purportedly the confession of Rin.
The President. Mr. Prosecutor, could you please slow down when it comes to reading the year and numbers so that it is clear for the record?
Certainly. Should I repeat any of them? Okay. Again, for E3-2254, the relevant ERNs are 00 in Khmer, 008676. In French, 00-834-853. And in English, 00-789-707. The other document I mentioned, which is the confession of Rin, is document E3/7403. Mr. Witness, had you ever heard that Rin was arrested and taken to S21?
To my knowledge, I did not know. I did not know whether or not he was replaced or he was removed or they did something to him. I did not know.
Do you know who it was that replaced Rin?
Later, I heard that Jay Chaim was the provisional sector committee chair.
And just so we're clear, Ye Chim, is that the same person as Im Cham, a woman from the Southwest Zone?
Yes, she was from the Southwest Zone.
Do you know who it was that was the sector chief immediately before Rin? Who Rin replaced as the chief of Sector 5?
The immediate predecessor of Ren was Chil. Chil was on provisional appointment after Ta Heng.
And is Chil the son of Ru Niem?
That I heard from others, I did not know it myself, that he was the son of Ruhnyam.
Do you recall when it was that Rin became the sector chief and when he disappeared? Can you give us an approximate month and year for those two events? about your answering, but maybe it's my fault for asking for two things at once. Let's go to when the issue of when Rin disappeared, was no longer the sector chief. Do you remember how long that was before the Vietnamese came? Was it a few months or more than a year?
Oh, I can recall it. It was in early 1978.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall for about how long Rin was the chief of the sector?
He was the chief of Sector 5 for not for long. It was a little over 1 year, or 1 year, I guess. I did not actually calculate it at the times, but it was about 1 year.
Sir, I believe you earlier talked about Mong as being the person who replaced Lum as the district chief in Prea, Net Prea. Do you know what happened to Mong?
Mong was arrested and he disappeared since then.
Do you recall what year he was arrested?
It's a bit difficult. It could have been in early 1977. I do not recall it well.
Thank you. What about his deputy? Do you recall his name? And can you tell us whether he was arrested?
As for his deputy, he was arrested as well. At
Was that Sam At?
yes, at
Did you know before Cheel was the sector chief, who was the sector chief?
Ta Heng.
What happened to Ta Hong?
I did not know the situation at that time, and it was not my business either. But I heard from others that he was arrested and he disappeared.
When did
Mr. President, counsel for Mr. Kyusampon, you may proceed. Counsel Kusamon, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask Mr. Prosecutor to verify on document E3/2254 concerning a man by the name of Ren. I look at this document. I did not find his name in this document. Can you please clarify this?
Yes, it's on the page in Khmer. It's at the very top of the page. And I think I read out before the ERN number 008676766. It's the very first name on the top of the page. or he says Secretary Sector 5, I believe, in the next column. But your honors can read it and determine yourselves what it says. Sir, do you want to go?
បាទខ្ញុំ
Mr. President, in the document quoted by the co-prosecutor, that is on page 4, the full name is Heng Rin, that is on the first line of that page. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, can you describe what happened in Preah Preah in Sector 5 with these various arrests, without going through many names with you? Can you tell us, you've talked about a number of individuals disappearing. Was there some pattern that you can explain about what happened?
What I may know is that for those who disappeared, and here I cannot speak about other villages, but I speak about the Preah district, including the names of Tawal, Tamaung, Tasamat, and Tachang. I knew that they disappeared.
Did people come in from outside the zone into Sector 5 when you were there during the regime?
There was this Southwest group that came.
What happened regarding arrests and disappearances when the Southwest group arrived? Did they stop? Did they increase? Explain what happened.
From my understanding, disappearance had happened before the arrival of the Southwest group, and the disappearance continued after the arrival of the Southwest group.
Okay, thank you. A couple other names quickly to run by you. Tahat from Tamapuk. Do you know someone by that name?
Tahat, from what I understand, was not from Tmawpuk but from Phnom Srok. He was a former Phnom Srok district chief. I don't know, maybe I make a mistake.
I'm sure the error is mine. Can you explain what happened to him?
Concerning his arrest or disappearance, I cannot tell you the details. However, when people disappeared, we all presumed that they had been arrested.
And then I have another name, Ta Peng, which I had listed as Phnom Srok, but maybe I misunderstood a previous answer you gave in another interview. Do you know a Ta Peng from Phnom Srok? else to you. It's from a book. It's E3 1593, the Kiernan book. The ERN in Khmer is 00637738. In French, the ERN is 006390009. And in English, 006786116. And in this book, the author wrote, sir, please listen carefully, in Preah Net Preah, the base people also suffered from the Southwest domination. Paul says that he had been on good terms with the Northwest cadres, quote, who were their children and relatives, unquote. But the Southwesterners killed these local cadres, alienating the peasantry and producing a new solidarity between new and base people. Local peasants concur. Sarun, working in the district Chalet, recalls the arrival of male and female cadres from the Southwest in early 1977. They were very tough and began a large-scale series of arrests and execution. Anyone in any way connected with the Lon Nol government disappeared, including former village chiefs and school teachers, and people who had been Lon Nol soldiers even just for one day. Sarun's boyhood friend from his village was arrested and killed. Did you, sir, ever have any experience along these lines? When the Southwest cadres came, did you see them, was there any new effort to look for Lon Nol persons with a background in the Lon Nol army or government?
Mr. Witness, please hold on, and Councillor Coppert, you have the floor.
I have an objection to this question, I think for various reasons. First of all, it's a leading question in the sense that this witness has not been asked any questions so far to this witness as the alleged fate of Lon Nol officials. So I think it would be now standard practice to first ask an open question whether this witness knows anything about this, then possibly confront him with this excerpt from Kiernan. I also have an objection to this particular excerpt because we have no idea who the sources are that Kiernan is basing himself upon. Plus, the excerpt looks or seems to look at the treatment of base people and has nothing to do with the arrests that we were just talking about. Plus, and in addition, this witness has said that Rin, who had replaced Hun, was a Southwest Zone cadre. He was a very mild and very fair person. So I'm not quite sure where this is all coming from. So I have an objection on various grounds, multiple grounds.
Thank you. First of all, Your Honor, when counsel says that the witness said that Rin was a mild-mannered and fair person, I don't recall him saying that. I recall him saying Rin would come to the work site and would work himself. That's a different quality. Secondly, regarding the sources, in fact, they are named. The names are given in Kiernan's book of the people that he has interviewed, both in the text and in footnotes. And of course, that would go to the weight in any event. In regards to the issue of whether or not this is relevant, in my understanding of the defense, particularly the Nunchia defense, is it's their position that the Southwest Zone had an order from Tamok not to touch Lon Nol officers, that the policy of the Southwest was not to touch them. So it's directly relevant to that defense contention unless they have abandoned it. And I did ask the witness about the pattern of arrests, an open question, once the Southwest Zone came. Now I'm asking him to comment on this more specific discussion of the pattern. May I proceed?
But sorry.
President, the objection by the defense counsel is overruled. However, the co-prosecutor, please rephrase your question.
Sir, when the Southwest Zone came into your area, were there any particular kinds of people that they were looking for, as far as you could determine by who they arrested or what questions they asked?
At that time, I was at the mobile unit, so I was not quite familiar with what happened at the cooperative. I worked at a far distance from the cooperative, and I did not know what was actually happening at the cooperative itself.
Did you ever hear any announcements on the radio after the Southwest came about traders in various parts of the region?
Generally speaking, communication was very limited during the regime. There was no radio to listen to, for instance.
Well, sir, wasn't there Phnom Penh radio? Wouldn't that be broadcast at meetings?
To my understanding, no, because I did not have any radio to listen to. For senior cadres, they might have their own radio to listen to, but not for us.
Let me read you another extract from the same book. The ERN numbers are in Khmer 006 37984, French 00639202, at the bottom and on to the next page. And in English, it's 00678710. It says in Region 5, in mid-1977, Ru Niem's son, Deal, had briefly taken over from Hing as Secretary of Sector of Region 5. He was now replaced by a Southwest Zone cadre, Heng Rin. In late 1978, Western Zone officials had already begun to take over the Sisaphon district or Region 5. Refugees reported that under the old leaders, a lot were allowed to slip by, but the new leaders punished every infraction. They were unbearable. On 26 June, Western units took over the Tama Pok district headquarters, also in Region 5. They, quote, arrested the 5-man ruling committee and disarmed the 100-man district civil militia. From there, the operation fanned out to the district's 15 cooperatives, unquote. Then on 5 July, the newcomers officially announced that of the 70,000 citizens in the district, 40,000 were traitors who had collaborated with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and concealed the names of former Lon Nol soldiers and agents of Thailand and Vietnam. Sir, do you recall any announcement that people from this district, from Tama Pok, were traitors who had collaborated with the CIA, Vietnam, and Thailand?
I did not know this matter that well. When the Vietnamese arrived, we all fled, and I did not know about this announcement. Tmolpur was far from the mobile unit location, so I was not aware of that matter.
Okay, thank you. Sir, did you know the name of Rin's wife?
No, I don't. I don't know her name.
Did you know if Rin had a 13-year-old niece?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Your Honors, the previous document that I had mentioned, E32254, also lists Rin's a woman on the same page and a 13-year-old girl on the same page below Heng Rin's name. Sir, I'm almost finished with my questions for you. I'd like to end by asking you for a reaction to something Q Sampan has written. And this is page E. This is document E3/18. In Khmer, it's 00103878. In French, it's 00595492. And in English, it's 0010378823. Sampan wrote, "Maybe it was naive for me to allow myself to become obsessed by the dam reservoir complexes, the seawalls and the canals that began to appear and which raised the prospects of the modern Cambodian countryside for which I had long hoped. Maybe it was naivete that finally brought me to trust Pol Pot, to submit to the general discipline, and to cloister myself in his headquarters without the slightest idea of his ultra-radical policy and his brutal methods were bleeding the nation dry and making it a weak defendant against Vietnam." First of all, sir, did you notice among the leadership an obsession with building dams?
បាទ
It is difficult for me to respond to this question. I think the force were simply a tool to be used by them. But when you talk about obsessiveness, I do not know what to say.
Would you agree with Khieu Samphan that Pol Pot's ultra-radical policy and brutal methods bled Kampuchea dry and made it weak against Vietnam?
Witness, please hold on. And Defense Counsel for Khieu Samphan, you have the floor.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, I am obliged to object here. The previous answer of the witness is very clear. We're not dealing with an expert here, so let's ask questions on what he went through, on what he can testify about, but asking general questions after a general reading of a document by Khieu Samphan that he does not know, I don't think that the witness is able to provide much information here.
I'm happy to rephrase the question. Sir, based upon your own experience, what you saw in Preah Net Preah, Trampang Tamar Dam, did you see ultra-radical policies inflicted upon the ordinary people? Based upon the arrests and the disappearances that you witnessed, did you believe that this ended up making the country weaker? Did you observe that?
It is difficult for me to respond to your question. I was at a very low rank level. I never thought about this matter. I was trying to survive and trying to earn my living someone. Is my understanding correct? Answer, yes. From my observation, the monitoring was constant. They would monitor us and see how much work we produce, for example, on a weekly basis. Question.
ពាក់ព័ន្ធជាមួយនឹងត
I have another question concerning Tawal. So the task assigned to you and you delegated further down the line was the instruction from Tawal, or it was the decision of the collective meeting, and then the work is or the task assigned to you?
ព្រោះការដែលមុននឹងមកដាក់ឲ្យពួកខ្ញុំខាងក្រោមនេះគេប្រជុំវាមានគណៈកម្មការគេប្រជុំរួចបានគេចាញ់ជា
There was a meeting. They convened a meeting of the members before they assigned the task to us. Question. Then it was not the discretion of Tawal alone, right, to assign the work or task to you, but actually it was the decision of the collective committee meeting for the delegation of task to you and your subordinates. Is that correct? Response: yes, that is correct. And then they delegated it further down the line. Question. Now I turn to the issue of the rice distribution. This morning you answer to questions by the prosecutor concerning this topic. You said that one person was given 3 cans of rice per day, and you said that the rice was distributed to the mobile brigade. Is that correct? Response. To my knowledge, only the mobile unit forces were distributed with the rice, and they were given 3 cans of rice per person. As for those who work in the cooperatives, I did not have the knowledge of as to how many cans of rice they received.
សូមអរគុណ
Question. So the distribution of 3 cans of rice per day, when did it start? Did it start when the construction of Trapangtmor Dam commenced, or it was only distributed at the beginning of the construction dates? Response. To my recollection, it was not a regular distribution at that time, because whenever they had to reinforce the constructions, then they had to provide more rice for them. There were rice reserve for them, and others could have some would have 1 can and a half per day, and at other times they had only 1 can of rice, or even half a can of rice, or nothing at all. Question. So you are saying that there were times when you were not given not even a can of rice per day. Is that correct? Response. Yes, I myself also did not receive the rice in certain days. Even the rice bran, we had to have rice bran at that time. Question. You used to live at the construction site, even though you were in the mobile brigade. You might have heard, or you may have seen the scene at the construction site. I would like you to tell the court about the overall working conditions of people at the work site. situation overall for the people over there. At the early days of the constructions, some had to work even at night, and then later on, they did not do at night. But at the beginnings, they started working during the night times as well, starting from 7 p.m. in the evening. Thank you. Question. Do you know why they were required to work at night? Response. That was my personal understanding. If they had the target to accomplish, for example, the construction of the dam of 1 kilometer length, and they wanted to complete it within certain numbers of days, and then they had to try to complete it within the time frame. Thank you. Question. I am interested in one point that you mentioned. You said that if they set the target to be accomplished, they had to do everything to accomplish it. So in the construction of this dam, what was the plan? Do you have any idea as to how long the project had to be completed? Response. Actually, I distributed rice to them. Generally, we distributed the rice when they had to complete or they had to do intensifying job. For example, if they set the targets that they had to complete this project within this date, we reinforce the force, and then we distributed the rice accordingly, and they had to make effort to complete that project. The President. Thank you, lawyer. The time is now appropriate for a short recess, and we shall adjourn now and resume at 3:30, 3 rather, this afternoon. Court officer, please assist the witness and his duty counsel during the recess. The President, counsel, if you have any questions, you may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, in order that we may ask the prosecutor to look at the document and answer my questions regarding NVIN, he referred to document E3601403 in English. That document has to do with NRIN. In the Khmer version, E31403, we have a distinction. It is not the same person, NRIN. In the Khmer version, E37403, we see NRIN not being of Sector 5, but of the firefighters company. If it is possible to cross-check and tell us whether there is an error, that would be of interest to us. In any case, there is a distinction and an error